Hey there, welcome to the Reinsurance Podcast, the place where we dive into all things reinsurance, the coolest part of insurance. We're your hosts, Jared and Ben, a couple of ex-practitioners who loved the industry so much we founded Supercede to tackle some of its biggest headaches. And we're here to share our insights and stories with expert guests as we uncover what's really going on in the industry.
Welcome back, everybody. Delighted that it's just Jared and me here because I'm fed up of guests. I'm kidding. No, we love you guests. Keep coming on the show. You're glorious. It just means I don't get to spend as much time hanging out with my buddy Jared.
Oh, we spend so much, probably besides our partners, our wives. This is the person I spend the most time talking to. You just get to listen into these ones.
Exactly. We get to just philosophize for a while. What are we philosophizing on today?
Well, today we're talking about we spend so much time talking about data on this podcast, but I thought we should spend some time talking about what actually happens during renewal seasons and the sort of tracking of all the deals in flight. And we've talked a bit about the idea of when brokers are doing a renewal season, we used to have every sort of, usually it's by team or however the brokers sort of segment their business, but you go into the room on a Friday and you sort of run through all the deals that are in motion and what's happening on each of them. It's pulling up the spreadsheet that everyone shares. I'm sure there's a similar tracker that the underwriters have. But we wanted to look at, in this conversation, a little bit of what is the Cedents experience. Cedents will buy, some of our clients, hundreds of deals during renewal season, which is over the course of a month or two. So they tee those deals up, they fire them off to the broker to get sort of quote, but then it's, you sort of wait to get feedback from brokers or like.
And it's funny, I mean, you gave the extreme example, but I think even if you've only got like 3 or 4 deals, it's still a nightmare because as a reminder for those not initiated in the dark arts of reinsurance deals, they're often, many layered, multi-headed beasts. Yeah. And on each of those layers and many heads or whatever we want to describe them as, you have many, many different participants and then many different stages, right? So this is complexity times complexity times complexity. And when you're doing that across even just one deal or many deals, keeping track and staying live and keeping a view on what's going on is an absolute nightmare. Yeah. Particularly when it's not even with the same people each time, right? You might have one deal being brokered by one broker and going to a particular cohort of reinsurers, another deal being co-broked between 2 brokers and going to some of the reinsurers that are on the other deal, but also some that weren't. Yep. And so as a reinsurance buying team, you have this unique conundrum of how do I stay abreast of all of the unique details of all these different deals whilst I'm trying to have conversations with it. Because as you and I know, what happens during the renewal season is you as the buyer get wheeled in to all of these meetings, with the help of your brokers, to discuss with your reinsurers just how important their participation in your program is to you, right? So you're expected to be able to meet in a room with a small reinsurer and be like, thank you, by the way, we really appreciate that you put 4% on layer 1, 7% of layer 2, and 8% of layer 3 on this excess of loss for motor that we put out to the market last year for the first time. I really appreciate that. We had to sign you down to 3 across, but we'll try and get you some higher signings on the upper layers because we know you like those next time. Nobody can do that nowadays, right? Nobody, unless they've got loads of time to do prep work for each one of the 200 reinsurer meetings that they have to have. Instead, it's more like, nice to see you. How's it going? Did you see that ludicrous display last night? I still want to be part of our panels, right? Whichever ones you're on, because I can't quite remember. You do our motor? I think you do our motor. Yeah. Cheers for that. Bye. Yeah,
and they'll know the big accounts and the big ones, but you're right. If the more deals you have in flight and the more complex your structures become, the more that's a real thing, and you got like a Cliff Notes thing in front of you that sort of says, here's where these things sit. The way brokers will update their clients on a deal. So again, this is a singular deal. So again, multiply this times several different deals you might have in flight, as well as multiple brokers that you might have involved. If it's co-broked, you might have the same updates from different brokers with different markets, but there'll be like these spreadsheet trackers. Again, we'll use sort of the time when I was doing this with Japanese clients. You had 2 different programs that they were buying, 5-6 layers each, 75 markets across the program. Those 75 markets split amongst the various layers, so not all on all of the layers, right? So, and then you're updating that on sort of a nightly basis and sort of giving the client back, here's the quotes that have come in, or here's the authorizations that have come in. Sometimes because you're working with worldwide reinsurers, as again, we've always talked about. So you have it where you draw the line in the sand at some point, right? It's now 11 p.m. in London, so we're going to send out the updates here. 14 minutes later, Bermuda market comes in with an authorization, and someone on the team might update the spreadsheet. But the spreadsheet that doesn't have that update is with the client. So now the spreadsheet you have, because again, we're not working with shared systems of record here, right? So the client is now looking at a number, and you're looking at the same sheet, which is showing a different thing. So going into that meeting that you outline, the client goes, well, we're still waiting on your quotes for this. And the client says, I sent those last night. Or the authorizations, he's like, I sent those last night. And they're looking at the sheet that you emailed them that doesn't have that thing. And now there's this but all of this is to show the opacity that you've outlined, right? Where it seems like we should walk into those meetings and have really good clarity as to who's on what are the conversations about, how are these deals progressing. But in reality, there's big chunks of like, how's it going? Haven't gotten any phone calls with anyone in a panic, so I think fine, right? And that's it.
And that information is critical, like on a few dimensions, right? If it's the internal, reinsurance committee or the CEO being like, how's it going? And you're like, yeah, fine. And they're like, no, details.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm having lunch with important reinsurer X tomorrow. Tell me what their situation's looking like. You need to be able to answer those questions there in the moment, not in 2 weeks' time.
You and I have had the experience in the past where we prepared data for executive meetings, right? And these executive meetings are actually really hard to plan, and they're really all the people are really busy, and their lunch gets pulled forward a day.
Yeah.
So they're like, can you give me the update? Where are we with all these accounts with this one trading partner? Like,
yesterday.
Yeah. This person is meeting this person in 3 hours.
Yeah.
And you're trying to like scramble through various pools of data and various teams that get involved to try to get them the best guess as to this is the accurate position of these accounts right now.
Yeah. And externally the same applies, right? You'll be like, oh, we're meeting this reinsurer, and the reinsurer comes in and says, hey, look, we're really hoping that you're going to give us good signings on this deal because we've really supported you on this other deal. And the buyer's like, oh, you have? Oh, that's very kind of you. And has no way of verifying this. It turns out after the fact, hang on a minute, you gave us like 2%.
Yeah.
And, that was at a push with a lot of work kind of thing. Being able to see it in real time and be able to say, well, I mean, you gave us 2%, so don't push it. We can give you a little bit of this other deal, but really we'd like you to be putting down a bigger line on the one that's difficult, or the other placement. Yeah. The horse trading is not really possible unless you've got visibility of how your different placements are going across the board. Yeah.
And so it makes it where there's this is the environment that you're actually in. And then so we get through that. Every year we get through it, right? It's chaos. And
how are they doing that today? What's the current way of getting through it at the moment?
So there's a few stages you'd sort of go through. You'd have where you'd send it out to your quoting markets, and then you'd sort of track the quotes, and then there'd be a point where you're drawing the line in the sand around establishing firm order terms.
Tracking them how they?
Oh, that's all spreadsheet stuff. Yeah, it's all on spreadsheets. And then what you're going to have is the broker and the reinsurer, a broker and the cedent will sit down and say, okay, here are the quotes we've gotten from these sort of 4 or 5 markets. Here's what we think we should do from order term basis, and you sort of at that point agree firm order terms, establish what the order will be to the brokers and what allocation various brokers might have if it's multiple involved, and then you send them out to get the authorizations. Usually it's to a wider audience of underwriters, and you begin sort of a couple weeks of sort of tracking the authorizations. This is where you've talked about before, all the back and forth happens between like additional questions reinsurers might have. So then you've got the tracker spreadsheet that sort of updating on a nightly basis, maybe every couple nights or every week around quote authorizations that have come in.
And how are the authorizations coming in? Is it all
the spreadsheet tracker again?
Just emails and phone calls?
The authorizations will come in via email. and by WhatsApp now, which is much to the chagrin of like data security people. But they will then sort of go, okay, you've sent me an authorization of this, and then there'll be the tracker that has the emails that will then update the trackers that will then be presented on a nightly basis. These aren't shared files because they're even if you have a modern sort of Windows stack, you're going to you're going to have version control issues. And then you have the signing process by which the cedent, and so this alludes to the thing you mentioned earlier, where they're trying to decide what signings they're going to give to every reinsurer. And they're going to make those decisions based on a variety of factors: support to other programs, support over time, payment of claims, all manner of things will go into their decision around how much they sign those. But they're oftentimes doing that blind as well. They're kind of going, well, we've heard they've done some good things there. On this other one, we're still waiting to see, but they've good indications they're going to support us there. So there's a lot of this blindness as you talk about. And then once the signings have been agreed, usually the broker will sort of email out to all the underwriters all of the final signings and then begin to work towards like binding and concluding that deal. But it's not finished yet, because then you have like contract certainty, and there's the final contract wording still needs to be signed off by everybody. And usually there's some signings dependent on the wording being finalized and agreed. So there's this additional window after close by which there's again more opacity, where it's like you're kind of on risk because we've all agreed this, but we're still pounding out the rest of the wording right now. So, so there's this weird additional element of uncertainty that this process will have.
And it doesn't stop then as well, right? I guess, because what you agree with those contracts when they eventually come in is that somebody's going to pay somebody some money. Yeah. And possibly they're going to pay you money back at some point there afterwards, right? And keeping all of that record effectively of who's done what deal with who and how much premium does the buyer need to pay to which reinsurer entity is also its own great big task, right? Because at the moment, they can't really use the spreadsheet that they've captured during renewals because it's done on the fly. Like lots of people quickly scribbling things down, so they've got a rough dashboard. People tend to only really like to use their official system of record to generate the accounting entries after this point. I know that's something that we've had the joy of diving into recently because we couldn't believe it, but actually what it turns out was happening was the only way that insurers were typically doing it was waiting until the fully signed bound contract would come to them, then sending that bound contract to a particular team, often offshored, to manually rekey the details of that contract. So going through the signing pages where all the stamps are and going, okay, on layer 1, it's 5% for reinsurer X London entity, and then it's 6% for Bermudian reinsurer, and so on. Repeat for layer 2, repeat for layer however many layers there are, and then the same repeat for every single contract that has been underwritten.
But that's not just once, right? The cedent does that, but the broker has to also do that, and the reinsurer has to also do that for all of the signings that they have. So every party on these transactions is all going in and taking that contract and
January, February, March, this giant industry-wide rekeying exercise undertaken by everybody in the industry simultaneously.
I wish they hear the sound of a million keyboards. Just
this giant processing center.
The thing that stands out to me the most in this, and this is the way when we think about our deals platform, the reason we thought about structuring it the way that we did is this effort is intentionally collaborative between the broker and their client, and the client and their brokers around what are all the things happening in flight. But all the solutions that have been built, even the ones built by the brokers, have ignored what their client's experience is. And they've sort of used it as they've built more efficient ways to send data to reinsurers. Great. There's some FTP sites and stuff. Great. It's a good way to get, data over to your reinsurers for them to sort of ingest that, et cetera. But being able to be collaborative with your client, being able to have your clients log in and see all the things that they're buying is like essential to making this whole process efficient, because this isn't a process between the broker and the reinsurer. It's a process between the broker and their client, like, and achieving a result together alongside the reinsurers, like partnering with the reinsurers to achieve the result for the client. Like this, it has to be built for three people. Yeah. That's just the inherent design of what we've talked, the sort of narrative we walked through includes three parties, right? So, but no one's thought about designing the solution to be that way. And that's where we sort of came in and said, this is what this is going to be like. It's going to be a platform where the cedents can log in and see all of their deals in one place, and their brokers can log in and manage the accounts for any of their cedents. And then the reinsurers can see everything that they're a part of in this one experience, and that becomes more efficient, more effective for all parties that get involved.
And importantly, it means the data is captured during the placement and verified as correct during the placement, so that it can be sent directly via API into the back office systems thereafter. So accounting systems, contract certainty systems of record, etc., are populated during the renewals, so that everybody has a reference, everybody knows where they stand. And actually, we have a much greater chance of issuing important financial documentation to external stakeholders on time and accurately than we did currently. In the method of doing it all in spreadsheets, then redoing it all from a contract into a system of record, 3 months delayed, with best efforts interpretations by people who don't actually work in the reinsurance placing team, trying to make sense of what the contract means.
Well, and this is one we talk about sort of a lot of times, how our listeners sort of experience or think about these things. Like, this is one of those like topics where all of our listeners will have real experience with like the chaos and carnage of all of the various sheets going on and the various folders that they're all buried in, and the various updates to all the client. And then, you get this request as you're about to log off, like, oh, can you ping me this update? And you're going to spend 15 minutes just finding where that update is, right? It's like somewhere there's a file that you've saved that on, and you got to double check your emails, make sure that you've not missed anything. It creates this really tense, turbulent time of the year during renewals.
And thank goodness that reinsurance claims don't have to be made too often, because when that happens, it's even worse, right? You've got to dig out the original reinsurance contract most of the time to work out, hang on, were there any subjectivities here for any of the markets? Who's actually on risk here? How much premium have we paid them? How much are they going to pay us in claim based on their share, and any subjectivities? Are there reinstatements, etc.? Or are there special terms that apply? None of that's captured for most people.
No.
It's all discovered, often a bit too late.
It creates another layer of this sort of complexity and frustration. But we'll continue to dive into this, because this being a topic, and it's one when people talk to us about topics they want to hear about, this is this sort of chaos. And again, our listeners will have a lot of familiarity with the stress around this. But this is a theme that's coming up more and more. People want us to sort of dive more into all of the moving parts of these busy renewal seasons. So we'll certainly touch on this one more and more in the future. But that's all we've got today.
Thank you for listening. We will see you soon with many other exciting reinsurance content pieces.
Exactly. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to the Reinsurance Podcast. If you enjoyed our show, don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a review to let us know how we're doing, preferably 5 stars. For more insights and updates, follow us on LinkedIn and visit our website at supercede.com/podcasts. You'll find the links in the show notes.